10 Buddhist Principles so that nothing can affect you. Buddhism, Buddhist teachings. There was once a monk who sat beside a river every morning. Villagers would come to him with their pain, betrayal, loss, humiliation, fear, and he would listen, nod, and say almost nothing. One day a young man asked him, "How do you hear so much suffering and remain so still?" The monk smiled and said, "The river does not resist what flows into it, it simply lets it pass." That is the heart of everything you are about to learn. In the pages of Buddhist teaching, there exists a quiet architecture for building a mind that cannot be shaken, not by insult, not by loss, not by the chaos of a world that seems designed to provoke you. Today we explore 10 principles drawn from this ancient wisdom, principles that have carried monks, warriors, and ordinary people through unimaginable hardship with their peace intact. Before we begin, if you find value in teachings like this, subscribe to the channel now. Every week we bring you timeless wisdom to help you build an unshakable mind, and this channel only grows because people like you decide to stay. Hit subscribe, and let's begin. Principle 1. Impermanence. Nothing in this existence stays the same. Not your body, not your circumstances, not even your suffering. The Buddhist concept of impermanence, or anicca, teaches that every feeling of pain you carry today is already dissolving, whether you notice it or not. The tragedy of most people is that they treat temporary storms as permanent climates. A harsh word from a colleague becomes, "I am unlikable forever." A single failure becomes, "I am destined to fail." But the wise student of impermanence learns to ask a different question in every hard moment. Will this matter in a year? In 5 years? Often the answer is no, and simply asking the question begins to loosen suffering's grip. There is freedom in knowing that everything passes. The praise you crave will fade, so do not build your identity on it. The insult that wounds you will fade too, so do not let it live in you longer than it lived in the mouth that spoke it. Ancient teachers used to meditate on decay itself, watching flowers wilt, watching seasons turn, not out of morbidity, but to train the mind to hold everything loosely. When you truly understand impermanence, you stop gripping so tightly to outcomes, people, and moments. You start to live with open hands, and an open hand cannot be wounded by what it never tried to possess. Principle 2. Non-attachment. Attachment is the root of nearly all suffering in Buddhist thought. This does not mean you cannot love, work hard, or build a life. It means you release the desperate grip that turns love into control and desire into anxiety. When you are attached to a specific outcome, every deviation from that outcome becomes a small death. When you are attached to how others perceive you, every raised eyebrow becomes an emergency. Non-attachment asks you to care deeply while holding the results loosely, to pour yourself fully into your effort without demanding the universe repay you on your exact schedule. Consider the archer who releases the arrow. Once it leaves the bow, the archer has no more control over the wind, the target, or the outcome. The wisest archers train themselves to release fully, both the arrow and the anxious need to control where it lands. This is the discipline behind non-attachment. Full effort, full release. People who master this principle become remarkably difficult to destabilize, because their peace was never hostage to circumstances they could not control in the first place. They act, they release, and they remain whole regardless of the result. Principle 3. The middle way. The Buddha did not teach extremes. He tried the extreme of indulgence and found it hollow, then tried the extreme of self-denial and found it destructive, until he discovered the middle way, a path of balance that avoids the traps of both excess and deprivation. This principle applies far beyond spiritual practice. It applies to how you handle anger, ambition, pleasure, and grief. The person who suppresses every emotion becomes brittle. The person who indulges every emotion becomes chaotic. The middle way asks you to feel fully without being ruled, to enjoy fully without being enslaved. In practical terms, the middle way means questioning your reactions before you act on them. Are you responding from balance, or from an extreme? Someone insults you. The extreme response is explosive rage or total self-erasure. The balanced response is calm acknowledgement without absorbing the insult as truth. Someone offers you pleasure or gain. The extreme response is grasping obsession. The balanced response is grateful enjoyment without dependency. Practiced daily, the middle way becomes a kind of internal thermostat, keeping your emotional temperature steady no matter what storms pass outside your window. If this teaching is resonating with you, take a moment now to subscribe. We are building a community of people who refuse to be shaken by the noise of the world, and your subscription helps this message reach more people who need it. Thank you for being here. Now let's continue. Principle 4. Right speech. In the Eightfold Path, right speech is not simply about avoiding lies. It is about understanding the enormous power your words carry, both toward others and toward yourself. Words spoken in anger cannot be unspoken. Words spoken about yourself, even in your own mind, become the architecture of your self-image. Right speech asks 4 questions before anything leaves your mouth. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And is it timely? Most suffering caused by speech, both given and received, comes from skipping these questions entirely. There is a lesser-known application of this principle that changes lives when practiced consistently: right speech directed inward. The way you narrate your own failures, your own body, your own worth, is a form of speech, and unkind internal speech creates the same wounds as unkind external speech. A person who curses at themselves after every mistake is violating right speech against their own being. Begin to notice your internal dialogue with the same discipline you would apply to speaking to someone you respect deeply. Over time, this single shift, treating your inner voice with truth, necessity, kindness, and timing, becomes one of the most powerful tools for becoming unaffected by outer criticism, because you are no longer reinforcing it from within. Principle 5. Equanimity. Equanimity, or upekkha, is perhaps the most direct antidote to being affected by life's chaos. It is not indifference or numbness. It is a settled evenness of mind that remains steady whether fortune rises or falls. The untrained mind swings wildly, euphoric with praise, devastated by criticism, elated by gain, crushed by loss. Equanimity trains the mind to meet all of these with the same quiet steadiness, like a mountain that experiences storms and sunshine alike without ever losing its shape. Building equanimity is not about suppressing your reactions. It is about widening the gap between stimulus and response until you have room to choose how you meet each moment. Ancient practitioners cultivated this through sitting meditation, observing thought after thought arise and pass without chasing any of them. You do not need years in a monastery to begin. You need only practice pausing before reacting, breathing before speaking, observing before believing every emotion that visits you. Emotions are visitors, not tenants. Equanimity is the art of greeting every visitor politely without handing any of them the keys to your house. Principle 6. Compassion without self-sacrifice. Buddhist compassion, karuna, is often misunderstood as endless self-sacrifice, but true compassion always includes yourself in its circle. A teacher who burns out helping others has not practiced compassion correctly. They have practiced a subtle form of self-neglect disguised as virtue. Real compassion flows like a well-tended spring. It can give endlessly precisely because it is also replenished. When you extend patience, forgiveness, and understanding to others, you are meant to extend that same patience, forgiveness, and understanding to yourself. This principle protects you from a very specific kind of suffering, the resentment that builds when you give and give while quietly neglecting your own needs. People who master compassion without self-sacrifice become remarkably resistant to bitterness, because they never allowed themselves to become empty in the first place. They help from abundance, not from depletion, and this abundance is what makes them unaffected by the ingratitude or demands of others. When you no longer need others to acknowledge your giving in order to feel whole, you become free to give without condition, and paradoxically, this is when your relationships deepen the most. Principle 7. Right effort. Right effort is the discipline of directing your energy toward what cultivates peace and away from what cultivates suffering. It asks you to notice which thoughts, habits, and company strengthen your well-being, and which quietly erode it. Many people exhaust themselves not because they work hard, but because they direct enormous effort toward things that drain them: comparison, grudges, chasing approval, while neglecting the small, consistent efforts that would actually build a peaceful mind. Practically, right effort means auditing your daily habits honestly. Does scrolling through the lives of others at midnight cultivate peace, or does it cultivate comparison and restlessness? Does replaying an old argument in your mind for the 10th time build anything, or does it simply deepen a groove of resentment? Right effort is not about doing more. It is about doing the right things consistently, even when they are small. A single minute of calm breathing during a stressful moment, repeated daily, will do more for your unshockability than an hour of forced positivity once a month. Small, correctly aimed effort compounds into a mind that outer circumstances struggle to penetrate. We are past the midpoint of this teaching, and if it has helped you even a little, this is the moment to subscribe to the channel. New videos like this arrive weekly, built to help you become someone that circumstances cannot easily move. Subscribing costs nothing, and it tells us to keep making more of this for you. Now, let's continue toward the final principles. Principle 8. The illusion of self. One of the more advanced teachings in Buddhism is anatta, the idea that the rigid, fixed, self we defend so fiercely is more fluid and constructed than we assume. Much of our suffering comes from defending an identity. I am the smart one. I am the failure. I am the person who always gets hurt. As though it were a fixed, unchangeable fact rather than a story we have told ourselves repeatedly until it hardened into belief. When someone challenges this constructed identity, we feel it as an attack on our very existence, and we react with disproportionate pain or anger. Loosening your grip on a fixed self does not mean losing your values or your character. It means recognizing that you are not one static thing, but a living process capable of growth, contradiction, and change. When someone criticizes you, instead of experiencing it as an assault on a fixed you can observe it as information about a moment, a behavior, a perspective, not a verdict on your entire being. This subtle shift removes an enormous amount of the sting from criticism, because there is no rigid identity for the criticism to shatter. You become like water, taking the shape of the moment without losing your essential nature. Principle 9. Acceptance of what is Buddhist teaching draws a crucial distinction between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. Loss, illness, disappointment will visit every life. Suffering, however, is often the resistance we layer on top of pain. The endless, why me? The refusal to accept what has already happened, the mental war against reality itself. Acceptance does not mean passivity or approval of what is wrong. It means acknowledging reality as it stands right now, so that your energy can go toward wise action instead of being consumed by denial. There is a teaching often illustrated by the parable of the second arrow. When misfortune strikes, that is the first arrow, and it hurts. But the frustration, self-pity, and resistance we add afterward is the second arrow, one we shoot into ourselves entirely voluntarily. Acceptance is the practice of feeling the first arrow fully and refusing to fire the second one. This is not weakness. It is one of the most powerful forms of strength available to a human mind, because it stops suffering from multiplying beyond what circumstances alone would ever cause. The person who accepts reality quickly recovers quickly, while the person who fights reality endlessly suffers endlessly. Principle 10. The present moment. Nearly every Buddhist practice eventually returns to a single point. The present moment is the only place life actually happens. Regret lives in the past. Anxiety lives in the future. Peace lives only now. Most suffering is manufactured by a mind that refuses to stay where life is actually occurring, replaying old wounds or rehearsing imagined disasters that may never arrive. Mastery of the present moment is mastery of suffering itself, because pain that is fully felt in the present, without the added weight of past regret or future dread, is remarkably survivable. This is why breath is used so often in meditation. The breath only ever exists now. You cannot breathe yesterday's breath or tomorrow's breath. Returning attention to the breath is a direct doorway back into the only moment where peace is available. Practicing presence does not require hours of silence on a cushion. It can be as simple as fully tasting your food, fully listening to a voice, fully feeling your feet on the ground as you walk. Each time you catch your mind wandering into old pain or future fear and gently bring it back to now, you are training the exact muscle that makes a person genuinely unaffected by life's turbulence. Not because life became easier, but because you finally stopped living in the two places, past and future, where suffering multiplies unchecked. Closing. These 10 principles are not a checklist to complete once and forget. They are a lifelong practice, a daily return to stillness in a world that will never stop offering you reasons to lose it. Impermanence, non-attachment, the middle way, right speech, equanimity, compassion without self-sacrifice, right effort, the illusion of a fixed self, acceptance, and presence. Together they form a mind that bends without breaking, that feels without drowning, that engages with life fully while remaining rooted in a peace nothing external can touch. If this teaching has given you even a fraction of the stillness it gave the monk beside that river, subscribe to this channel right now. We publish this kind of wisdom every week, built for people who are done being controlled by circumstances outside their power. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave a comment with the principle that spoke to you most, and we will see you in the next one.